Public Works Committee. We're meeting this evening at City Hall in the first floor conference room on August 1st, 2017 at 6 p.m. First, before we get started, I'd like to go around and have people introduce themselves.
Scott Kellogg, Alderman.
Mayor Zach Verwink.
Paul Shabilsky, City Clerk.
Joe Eichstead, City Engineer.
Joe Terry, Director of Public Works.
Steve Cope, Alderman.
Kelly Ryan, Encourage.
Rob Jensky, Square Bar.
Amy Peretti, Square Bar. Nancy Rosa Bowers, Winona.
Lee Chipman, Venus Gentlemen's Club.
Okay, thank you. Item number 1 is to review the DPW report.
So I just passed it out. You should have it with your information there. I was on vacation last week, so I've got this put together. Another busy month. You can review this at your leisure. We will get this also posted on the city's website. I think a few interesting things with the EAA at the airport. There were over 200 transient aircrafts served this last month with over 7,000 total gallons of fuel, which is certainly a big month. Our construction projects are going well. The splash pad is progressing a little slower than what we hoped. The water journey feature that we've been waiting for now for a while arrived this morning, so they'll be working on installing that. They've been doing some of the pours there, so hopefully we'll have it wrapped up here still mid-August. I think everything else on here you can review at your leisure, and if you have any questions, just let me know.
Okay, anybody have questions? Okay. Item number 2, review and discuss parking in the west side downtown area. And that's, start with A, Johnson Street permit parking between 1st Avenue South and 3rd Avenue South. Joe, want to
Sure.
start all that?
So these are on the agenda tonight. There was some information that was distributed to the downtown business owners a week ago, just providing information about current permit parking that was available in the downtown, and that information was primarily derived off of parking maps that we had and the current ordinance language that we have. And that's, I guess, somewhat of the basis for the discussion tonight is the signage that exists out on Johnson Street and First Avenue, which we'll get to in a minute, I guess, but they're currently signed as 2-hour parking. And so there's a little bit of confusion, and with some of the recent discussions with downtown parking, thought it would be something worth revisiting with the committee. So.
I think to the benefit of the other committee members, Tom, too, if you wouldn't mind, I think I had asked engineering to put together an updated available permit parking in the downtown area, of which Joe identified these 2 areas in particular that were not surface lots, but permit street parking, and that's was a bit of a surprise to me, and I think to others, that we had that in our ordinance. And so I think that request created a bit of concern and consternation amongst the property owners adjacent to those permit parking for good reasons. I think it's uncommon for municipalities to permit parking outside of fronts of businesses in downtown areas, and I think and then when the city attorney reviewed it, it was the direction of, after a discussion her and I, to not issue any permits until the issue came before the committee, because the ordinance, actually, the language is in conflict. It can't exist in its current form. It needs to be modified if, in fact, there will be any permit parking. And then obviously the meeting that Tom, that we both attended at the Square Bar to discuss the issue, I think warranted the need to have at least an aspect of this on the discussion for the committee tonight. And I know staff had some recommendation. I had sort of offered my 2 cents about what I think would be an appropriate remedy to the cleaning up the ordinance, and that is to recognize the removal of permit parking on Johnson Street altogether. First Street is maybe a separate item and discussion, I think, but I guess that's really where I just want to add that little bit of background for everybody's benefit, especially those two folks that weren't able to be at that, well, it wasn't a public meeting, so they wouldn't have been invited to attend anyway, the Square Bar that day.
Scott or Steve, do you have any questions initially here?
I guess, no, in the sense that you apparently have visitors that may have.
They're from
some
the area,
concerns.
downtown, yeah.
So maybe if we hear from them,
Okay.
then maybe we'll have quite more questions.
Okay.
You received,
One of you want to start?
sure.
We'll
We
intro.
didn't receive the original letter at the Square Bar, but Nancy did next door about concerning the permit parking on Johnson Street. Nancy did some background checks and she come up with the old map that didn't list those 4 spots in front of the Square Bar for the old permit parking. They have that map here. It came from the minute meetings in 2013. Our storefront, our front right there, we have 800 square foot building, we have 1 parking spot in front of it. Our clients are elderly. They come in the afternoon to have a beer, watch the ball game, they go home, you know, and they won't walk. Most of them are unable to, you know, but our clientele is average age is about 72. And that's not exaggerating, you know, this would kill us. I mean, we would be done. There's just no way. I realize the need for the downtown, and I see the problems with the downtown parking. But you'll eliminate our business if you okay that permit parking on Johnson Street. We'll never make it. We share 5 spots in front, with 1 with Bowers and 3 with the Union Hall, and then the 1 spot in front of our business.
Sure.
What, sounds stupid on my part, but permanent parking, what's permanent park? I mean, in other words, if you have a permanent parking in front of your business, then you allow anyone to park there? How does that work? Do you have to have a stick? I mean, I don't know.
So the permit parking that we do have, I mean, we don't issue too many of them in any given year, but it's $160 for the year. They get a tag to hang in the window. It allows them to park Monday through Friday from a certain time period. The Dixon lot's the prime example. I think we have about 13 spots, I think, filled in that lot for this current calendar year. So,
But how is it unique on a street park? See, I understand a lot parking, where you get a sticker and you go into the lot and you get, but how does it work with a street park?
very similar, although it's much more uncommon to see. You know, mostly the parking in the streets, public parking, just you know, it's somewhat restricted, but it's not tagged for a particular person.
As staff, we were surprised to see that
Right.
that was listed in the ordinance as permit parking. You know, it's unusual. It's not currently signed that way, right? So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to bring it to committee to review and potentially make a recommendation that it not be permit parking, that it be 2-hour parking just like it's signed. We would, staff would then propose ordinance language change to reflect that. And, you know, and in that area, I think staff, the mayor, the residents and business owners are aligned. That maybe at one time it was appropriate, but we can't see any reason why it would be appropriate to continue to have it this way.
That just helps clarify a little bit.
Anybody else? Okay. Joe?
Should we talk a little bit about some of the other areas?
Probably, before we go one by one, and then we might have to back up or something.
So First Avenue?
Sure.
So yeah, First Avenue south between West Grand and Johnson Street.
Yeah.
It's directly adjacent to the river, the first street there. That has stalls as well. They're currently signed as 2-hour parking on street, of course. And the ordinance has them listed as permit parking as well. At this time, if there's a need to change it, we can change it. I think maybe there's some discussion about the, how to actually administer permit parking along that stretch of roadway, but there may be a need to serve permit parking to keep people off of West Grand Avenue and, you know, in front of the storefronts to keep those 2-hour parking spots open and freed up for customers, so.
Joel?
So I think one of the issues there is that there is a bit of a shortage of parking for Wood County employees in the River Block building. And that particular location is about the closest parking that the county doesn't own. And so, you know, there is some concern. I think, I haven't been to some of the meetings, Mayor, maybe you could help me out, but I think there's been concern expressed that, you know, the parking stalls that are available for merchant parking, there's a concern that some of those might be utilized, at least for short periods of time, by staff trying to get into, or guests trying to get into the county building, and would potentially take away merchant parking, which I think we all can agree that's what Grand Avenue was intended for. So the parking along First Avenue South is also inconsistent. The ordinance language says it's permit parking. The signing indicates it's 2-hour parking. That area, though, at least the staff opinion, is that it would likely be appropriate to actually re-sign that to be consistent with the ordinance. So that area would be permit parking. And that would assist, I think, the county employees or encourage them to utilize that area and maintain the parking along Grand Avenue as merchant parking.
That whole area, that whole
I think
19 section?
I think there's 19 stalls there.
The only thing I see with that parking is a lot of people park down there to walk. You know, walking park is right there, it's right downtown, and they use that parking lot. I just see it every day.
I don't think you guys understand how that is. You want people to come down and enjoy the river,
But there's no place to go.
and now you're gonna take that parking away.
Yeah.
I see it every day. When I come in, everybody in the summer and stuff like that, park there. If they wanna fish, if they wanna, that is the only parking that people
Can get out there.
absolutely get in and enjoy the river right there.
No, I see
If
kayaks,
it's not
I
one
see
side, it's the
everything.
other side, and that's a beautiful side right there.
There is the rest of First Avenue, though, that you can park
There's
on.
not that much left of the rest of the First Avenue down
Parking
past,
right now.
Front of your
past
building,
Kelly.
right, Kelly?
After the 19 spots, how many spots is after the
There's down
19?
past Goggin Street, which is Johnson Street to
You must
Goggin
have
Street.
2
is
or
where
3 or 4 there maybe, Kelly? Does it show on there, Rob?
But Johnson Street, all of the angle parking that would no longer be permit would be frankly adequate for the amount of walkers. I mean, I'm at that stretch, as you are, as many times a day
But
as you
they
are.
turn on
They
first,
may.
and then if they turn on Johnson, they're,
They'd have to
right.
turn left to park, but I think, I would debate that there's adequate amount of parking for the trail users on Johnson Street, or perhaps right now in the Encourage parking lot or in the Centralia parking. I mean, there's adequate on-street parking for those walkers that are using the trail. I mean, they're,
Do you want to encourage it or discourage it? And that's what, it's the
well, I don't
open
think if
arms
they have
or,
to, park a half a block off the trail, that they would not use the trail as a result. I find that hard to believe.
what we need to do is find the county.
Well, I think.
The mistake was when the county bought River Block, they didn't buy the parking lot that come with the building.
Right.
Now the city's scrambling to fix the county's problem. What they need to do is bus people from the courthouse down to River Block.
Or from the Elks Club, which has no cars in it all day long.
Right.
There's
No.
none there.
No.
That would be perfect permit parking right there.
On a side note, I don't know what meetings you'll have with the county concerning this, but Pup Pilots has a very nice van that's available for hire in the mornings and the afternoons to bus
Those shuttle
employees back and forth. We already have a driver lined up if need be, for a small phenomenal fee. No,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think it's-
and then insured and responsible drivers, and then they could use the Elks Club parking lot.
Yeah. Well, I think the big dynamic is weather, And I think when the weather changes,
It's gonna-
this dynamic's gonna be different than it is
It's gonna be
today.
terrible.
And, you know, I think, I'm less, I know we can't discriminate on who we dole out those parking stalls to, but the reality is the Meadwitter tenants and their employees have a lack of parking today, right? You've heard it from all those providers.
Absolutely.
So my intended remedy by keeping at least half of the First Avenue parking stalls available for permit would be they're available to those businesses that do not have surface parking. The county and the county employees have ample surface lots, they're just not as convenient, or like you say, they're not adjacent to the building and things. So the idea there would be that angle parking would be provided, potentially, it'd have to be a lottery or some system that identified for it, but if the business owners truly want parking within half a block of their front door for their employees and their business owners, that would happen on First Ave.
So you're proposing only half of that?
Potentially is half, it's 19 spaces, I think there's 1 or 2 handicap, is there a handicap? I'm not remembering.
Yeah, right on the end of that
There are.
left-hand bank. there's a handicap spot.
That perhaps the middle spaces, we, you know, and leave 5 on each side, but half of the 19 should be available for permit parking. We have 2 hour everywhere downtown, right? That's the primary restriction. The reality is there's just not enough parking from the displaced Meadwitter parking lot that is behind the building there for those tenants and their employees.
So will you give priority to those tenants for those designated permit spots then?
That would be up to the administration of the policy. That would be the idea, but I don't think we've agreed or arrived at that conclusion yet. But that, I mean, that's intended, the business owners don't, at least the ones that have been at meetings have shared that it's not so much their parking problem, but it's compounded by the employees parking on the street, taking away from the customers that used to be able to park in front of their businesses.
Does the county have enough parking places for all their employees?
They have a surplus of available parking between
Why-
Then
outside.
why mess with that?
Why you don't
Well,
put
because
parking?
the police department can't tell a county employee they can't park on the street within a 2 hour window, right? So
Well, and that's fine.
anybody can
Even-
use that parking.
Right.
And they are, they're
Right.
using that 2 hour
And they're
street
checking,
parking.
they're jogging tires.
They are,
And they-
right, and they're writing they're writing tickets, but the
Oh,
problem
yeah.
is, there's county employees that are moving their cars every 2 hours, and they're parking in front of the Meadwitter building, in front of Book World, every 2 hours they're moving their vehicles, and so legally, they're using that appropriately. Now, we would say, we'd hope that they would be using the parking lots that the county has made available for their employees, but the reality is, a good portion of those cars have yellow hang tags in their windows, and they're county employees.
Now, the other thing too with the permit
They
parking
should be fined.
is that it's usually only permit parking Monday through Friday from a certain time period, say 7 AM to 5 PM. Outside of that, it would be back
It's
to
all-
2 hour parking.
Yeah, it's not the whole day.
Right.
It's like 9 to 4 or something is what it.
Yeah,
sounds correct.
there's a couple different times out there, 9 to 4, 9 to 5, or 7 to 5.
But
And
then
are
with
you
a
able
2 hour
to give
parking
priority
after that.
to a certain class of people for those permits? Or do they have to be open to the public on a first come, first served basis? So that's
It's
my
a question
question.
of
The intention
administration,
is to
yeah.
support the Meadwitter tenants and business owners. Can you give them that priority, or is it
For
first
their
come,
employees.
first served?
We'd have to check with our lead counsel.
There's a big question about it, but I think just in terms of map, there were 20 spaces, that is that first row behind the Meadwitter building, not the alley, but behind that. So we were dealing with really 20 spaces that were displaced by the county assuming that parking lot.
What
So-
about on the backside of J.C. Penney and all those spots down there? There's angle parking there that Penny's is gone.
Right.
You know, and that's
Well, we've
another-
talked about that Nancy brought that up that day.
In the bank.
I don't know if we want to create another monster out of adding more permit parking on the street
Or instead
necessarily.
use that permit parking down there and leave First Avenue open.
I think the issue is for the business owners themselves and their employees, trying to make sure that there's something available as close as possible for those business owners, right? And
Right, not for the county. So
Correct.
those 19
That's
spots
the
Right.
intent, yeah.
are the tent, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
You know, we'd also, Nancy and I went down and looked at the US Bank parking lot. There's 10.
It's empty.
But they're not wanting to purchase permits in the Dixon lot today, so it's hard to expect them to purchase lots behind JCPenney or spots behind JCPenney or in US Bank.
No, this whole ordinance all came in back when I worked in the mill. And
Right.
We couldn't find a parking spot.
Yeah.
And the Meadwitter block was, the barn was full of employees.
there was permit parking in the old local parking lot across the street, and there was also metered parking in there. So there was ample parking for everyone, which that meter parking is gone. My concern is, Encourage has been a wonderful neighbor, but when you start on your parking lot, we can't count on parking there anymore.
Which I think leads to my comment, which is not a question, but a comment, and it is actively raising outside investment for that Tribune project. I would like to see, I think, and we would like to see parking decisions being made consistent with a vision for downtown and a long-term plan. And it feels like some of the decisions being made right now are very responsive, instead of being proactive and thinking longer term in terms of what's happening down there. And I'm not criticizing the city, I'm just saying I understand you're in a position, but what we're trying to do is bring outside investment in to help grow business in downtown, and taking a longer view. We're willing to be a good neighbor and a good partner, and certainly to the businesses and to the community. But he's right, when the Tribune starts phase 2 of construction, that parking lot is going to get redeveloped, as you know. It'll be primarily for patrons of the Tribune. But longer term, in terms of what we want in downtown, or what's the approved plan for how we're going to approach parking.
Sure.
Does it seem like somebody's manipulating this problem, Kelly, to you?
I'm not certain about that.
Okay.
I just know that we have tried to be very consistent, very transparent, and a really good partner with everybody that we work with, and try to model good behavior in terms of how we're thinking about development.
So, I mean, just kind of summarize it a bit. I mean, we've got an ordinance that doesn't coincide with the existing signage that's on the street. So, you know, at a minimum, trying to, at least for the interim time, come up with something that either we sign it as the ordinance says, or we change the ordinance to something that we think might serve the needs for the time being, and if they need to change again in the future, we can revisit the future.
See, I kind of like that comment. It might be I mean, we want to have our act together and not change it a lot of times, but it may be fluid too. And I mean, we may change the ordinance so we provide those permit parking, etc. But then maybe a year from now we'll say this isn't working and modify this part. But maybe it has to be a fluid thing, and people understand that, and we just monitor it and see how it's working. Now, this might be a crazy question, but that area where if Wood County is, the employees are going out and moving their car every 2 hours, and people might disagree, but in that one section, if you made it 1 hour, other sections are 2 hours, so they patronize the stores and bars and so forth. But if that's the case, maybe making that 1 hour, making it less convenient for people. If a person still wanted to shop, they could go for 1 hour and shop at the bookstore or wherever and still have access. But if you're at, I mean, I wouldn't want my employee to go out every hour to move their car. And it's just a food for thought as for those slots along there. But as we brainstorm ideas.
Joe?
I think some of the businesses in that area, though, the nature of the business may require more than an hour. And you've got an accounting business, you've got a computer business, you've got a law firm there, restaurant, you know, all you can eat. Sometimes that takes a while. So, I think that is a challenge. And with that challenge, though, is if there is permit parking on First Avenue, the proprietors now don't have to worry about 2 hours. If a business owner wants, you know, or their staff wants somewhere to park, and it's permit parking, you know, they're good for the workday.
Right.
You know, and so that does make that available. You know, again, it's not, there's no foolproof way to say that people aren't going to still use that that 2-hour area. And that certainly won't, prevent some of the county staff from parking and moving. But, it would hopefully open up some areas for, those business owners and their employees to park, fairly close by their business.
Kelly, if we were to do, I guess, as we've been talking about, and taking it from your comment, would that, I guess, is that any hindrance to, I guess, a business that would be looking at maybe doing something that they see permit parking in some place that your group or whoever could say, well, the city is receptive to having this changed? I mean,
I think I like what Scott and Joe were saying is you have interim measures right now, right?
Yeah,
It's
right.
not a permanent solution. Actually, when you said that, I was thinking, isn't that why McCain voted against Affordable Care, right? It was to make sure it didn't that it wasn't gonna go into law as it was, but interim measures are needed right now.
Right.
It feels like, because businesses are losing customers, and they lose customers, and it's hard for them to regain them back again. So we have to, I think we have to do something on an interim basis, but if it can be written in there that it's interim to respond to current immediate need, and then a longer term thought process around how do we address this consistent with longer term vision.
Joe, I
You know,
go
for,
with that.
for some other, long-term suggestions too, we've taken a look at this, this Third Avenue corridor and, potentially straightening that out. So the work that we're gonna do in the Centralia lot this summer, would be consistent with that future straightening of Third Avenue and potentially provide additional parking. And now there's a green space, which is really nice. But apparently, the large parking lot that now has the pavement removed is going to be a big green space. So,
Is there a timetable on that?
not that I'm aware of.
Within the next decade, though?
I don't know. And in fact, I was talking to some staff today and plan to sit down with our planning and zoning coordinator just to see what, if this is now a project that's underway, do we have any limitations where, where it can stay in the condition that it can or not? I don't have answers to that at this point.
That was straight at one time.
Right.
The parking lot's not for sale, right? Someone's not going to be able to purchase it correctly?
It's my understanding
That's right.
that that's correct.
Okay.
Which would really be nice to see a green spot if it was gonna be green, because it's the eyesore right now.
Yeah.
This large lot here.
Is there nothing the city can do to
There's an
Acquire
acquire that lot?
We don't need no more green space in this town.
They
We
need
have
business and money in this
enough.
town.
We need to bring businesses in this town and get it back to growing, so people aren't moving out of this town.
All we can do is try to work with the property owner.
Yeah, and I know that's
You
gonna
want
be
to try and
She's
difficult.
on the committee,
What
so-
you said?
No, Jerry's on.
Jer-
Okay, there's a lot of,
We'll see what you come up with and then revise it if we need to.
there's got a bit of language here, let's see if we can create the motion.
Good. Do we have a-
But I'll take the A, I'll make a motion to remove permit parking on Johnson Street. That's the first motion. Should we go motion by motion like that and make it
Probably, I
simple?
think that can stand by itself. We discussed the two, but we can do one by one.
Right,
Yeah.
so should we second that one and then pass
Mhm.
that?
Second.
All right, committee, any discussion between us? Hearing none, committee will vote. All in favor, respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it.
Okay, I would make a second motion to remove permit parking along First Avenue. And the city will provide 11 permit parking stalls available in the Dixon lot. That,
They're already available
Yeah,
today.
I would suggest that if the, there are 19 stalls now,
yeah,
if the If the recommendation is 10, that the motion might read as interim solution to downtown parking, that 10 stalls along First Avenue South.
Okay.
Between Grand and Johnson. Remain as permit parking.
Yeah, that's the
Which-
second paragraph.
Which end of those 19? I mean, just so it's clarified,
South end? I would say the south end because.
South end?
Why don't you do the middle? Why don't you do, so the handicaps are open?
Right.
There are people that park there and walk into the river block. I mean, their clients. So there are people that park there, you know, I see
Right.
elderly people get out and.
So the south end would be permit parking.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
then you could walk into
Right.
the.
Interim, I think you do what is best.
South end would be permit parking? Which is away from the building.
Right.
Right.
Because then you would have people who
Their,
want
their
to.
clients
Clients.
can use
Clients
it,
use
because
it.
I have
Other
seen
parking.
people.
That's why
get out
I
and
was
walk
thinking
across
the
the
south.
street.
Gotcha. All right.
Now, there are 20-some spots marked in the River Block parking lot behind Mead Witter for visitors. And I think one of the challenges is the public entrance is on Jackson Street, right, on the north end of the River Block. And I think people think they can park on the south end and get in that door, and so then they're parking there. So it's part of a habitual thing that, well, I hear you say that those clients are using it. My preference
Is
is
that
to
door
get
not
them.
open?
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Exit only.
Walk
And
around the
so
building.
my preference is to start getting their clients, those users, to be
door's not
parking in the
open?
parking lot
No.
and not on the surface of the streets, right? Or street surface. So my preference is to either have it in the middle or on the north end of First Ave, to be the permit stalls. Because again, we're trying to lend this to those that are there for 8 hours a day, every day. Not
But we're
outside.
kind of leaning towards giving the, or letting the employees of Mead Witter Block.
If there's a way for us to toe
To
the
do
line
that.
about legally to administer that, so that way we're offering it to those that don't have a surface parking spot available to themselves downtown, yeah, that if we can find a way to administer it that way. The other component that I would add is the month to month. The critical component is this is a month to month,
Right.
so if
Gotta
we
allow
decide, or you
flexibility.
decide next month or future months, we're not gonna administer it
This
this way.
isn't working.
Exactly. That way we're not in a contractual arrangement with those permit holders that have it for a year.
You're not, yeah.
Are you gonna put a stipulation in there about all the days of the year
Yeah,
that
right,
that
we
road
talked
is
about that.
closed
Yeah,
for
any street
the
closures.
picnic or for
I think
4th
that
of July? I mean, that
They
road's
waive their right
closed
to
a
that
lot.
spot when that street's closed in effect. We would probably put that in the permit
Yeah.
application. Yeah.
It's funny because that walk from the south side of that parking lot into the other end of the building to get in there is no shorter than walking from the Elks Club.
Oh, I know. Logic is immaterial in a lot of the parking discussions I've sat through, believe me. Yeah, logic doesn't have a role.
And another funny thing is everybody's gotta park as tight to the building as they possibly can in the morning. So when they go home, they don't have to walk, but then they're, all three breaks, they put their tennis shoes on and they walk around and around and around the block there. You see them come down 4 or 5 times at lunchtime, just walking around that block.
Yeah, I know. Snapchat.
Committee? Wanna come up?
Why don't you revisit?
Put something down
your-
here?
What you said would be the.
So with the comments from the mayor, it would be a motion to maintain permit parking on First Avenue South. The 10 stalls on the north end between West Grand Avenue and Johnson
On a month-to-month basis.
on a month-to-month basis, permitted on a month-to-month basis.
Days.
We can always be changed later, like we talked about. That does- I would make that motion.
Second.
Okay, so what I have here is motion by Kellogg, second by Coth, to maintain permit parking on First Avenue South, 10 stalls on the north end between West Grand Avenue and Johnson Street
On a month-to-month basis.
on a month-to-month basis.
We have to say the other stalls are 2 hour or not on this one? No?
It's already 2 hour today.
Okay. I just-
And would that be Monday through Friday from 7 to 5.
These Monday to Friday, I guess, what are the hours on the other ones that we got? I think I've seen 7:30 to
Some of our other-
4:30 or something.
Yes,
Maybe they're different.
like the Dixon lot is 7 to 5.
Probably that then, without asking them what their hours are.
Yeah.
Because there may be different hours.
Well, and if it's before 7 and after 5, there's still 2-hour parking.
Right. Yeah.
They're
So-
basically talking about a 10-hour parking there, because you can park an hour and a half beforehand or 2 hours beforehand.
And then 2 hours after.
And at 5 o'clock, it turns to 2-hour parking if you're already there.
True, that's a good point.
So rather than stating the whole thing, again, it'd be to amend it to say Monday through Friday from 7 to 5
Mhm.
p.m. Would, I would agree to that, and you second it, would you agree?
Yeah.
Oh.
Monday.
Okay. Committee will vote. All in favor, respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
That was 7 a.m. until 10 p.m.
5 to 5.
7 to 5.
Tom, if I may ask a question?
Yeah.
Excuse me. The price for the permits, I know it's set forth by ordinance for the permit spaces. I haven't heard of it as a, people have just wondered where the number came from, and I don't know if there's any history about when we set those parking rates. It's pre-you, it's pre all of us. I don't know, Tom, if you remember the day of why we set that rate, but that may be something that the committee may have to come back and have some discussion about. I haven't heard any suggestion it should be X price, you know.
I did some,
Everybody would want it
I
for
did some
free,
rough
but-
calculations, and it seems that over a 20-year span, that about pays for the asphalt.
Sure.
Right,
Makes
so,
sense.
Yeah,
so
Based on
I
cost.
think it was probably derived based on actual cost.
Yeah. Okay, just wanted to
Yeah,
put that out there.
yeah.
That's another one that people have brought forward as the price.
That's a rational, yeah, makes sense.
It's 13 a month or whatever it is.
Well, then, item 3.
May I, Mr. Chairman, before I leave?
Yeah.
Since we're done with parking, I just want to make a comment since this is Public Works Committee. And we are hosting a picnic tomorrow in that same space that we
Mhm.
expect somewhere between 7,000 and 8,000 people for. I cannot speak highly enough about the city and the staff and the support for the logistics of the picnic. This is the 3rd or 4th year we've done it downtown now.
Mhm.
The police department, everyone has been really wonderful to work with, both in their staff capacity and volunteers, right? So we have over 400 volunteers signed up for tomorrow. And every one of these businesses against the wall, right? They're all supporting it too, so, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Kelly.
Yeah.
Item 3, review parking ordinance modification for the 4 stalls in front of the River Block building to consider reducing the parking time limit from 2 hours to 30 minutes in that area.
Right from the building fence.
So yeah, these are the 4 stalls directly in front of you.
That's right on Grand Avenue. Right in
Yeah,
front of the
right
building.
on, right on Grand Avenue.
It's like the courthouse, sort of.
I'll pull the map up from there.
Yeah, the only question that I have now that I'm not sure of is if it's an exit only, and I guess it still provides a quicker turnaround for people to walk around to the north side to get in.
Where would that be up there? On Grand Avenue or no?
On West Grand Avenue, right where that white car is parked, between First and
See,
Second.
Go ahead. That's right, coming off the bridge.
I was just thinking like 30 minutes, okay? For me, if I were to go in and do business and get back to that, I think 45 minutes. I know we're talking about minutes, but 30, by the time you park your car, go up an elevator, find the person you have to talk to. You know, you only have 20 minutes, and I think that extra 15, especially I'm 70, you know, and be able to do those things and things like that. Other people are the same way, so it's something more than 30.
Paul?
Public comment. I go over to the courthouse frequently, interact with the county clerk. I've been in the Register of Deeds and the clerk of courts on good business this week alone. And I do like, they have a 25-minute, I believe, is out front of theirs. And I usually have plenty of time. Granted, it's right out front. This one you'd have to walk around. But it's really, really convenient for me, especially on days I don't want to park in their lot. If there's a spot open, I can just get in there. I can get in and out. And usually if I'm there for 30, maybe even 35 minutes, it's not a big issue. But I could see the...
Here you have to walk around the building, right?
So there, yeah, so there'd be a little time factored into that, I guess.
I was just thinking of that.
But I do, I'm just saying the model of the courthouse, I really
I like that
appreciate the convenience factor that it gives you if you're just going in for something quick.
Yeah. I'm just thinking.
30 might be too short though, listening if you're bringing it up there.
Well, take
I think what
Might be cutting it short.
we have to think about is the type of offices that the county has put in that building. I believe it's a lot of their economic support and human services type office. I mean, it's not, to what I understand, the departments of the county that are in there aren't like the ones where you can go in, like where the courthouse, where you go to the clerk of courts and drop a piece of paper off and you're out. These are the ones where you have to sit down and bring your paychecks and your expenses, and you have to, you know, I mean, to my understanding, like food stamps and all the other stuff that used to be in the Centralia building, that's now the departments that are inside this building. So these are things that take time, where people are going to be there for a while. And honestly, my opinion on it is a lot of these folks probably need the 2 hours.
The 2 hours might be, if that's the case.
Do we know where the request came from?
I believe it originated from the county. The county had requested it. I think it's been some time, kind of got lost in the shuffle a bit, so.
That was my understanding too, that it was actually the county's request
To reduce it down
to 30 minutes.
Can we recheck that and bring it back, I guess?
Sure.
Just to make sure, because, you know.
How long ago did the county request that too? 'Cause
I wasn't sure.
A couple months ago.
That might be something just
Be interesting if they
to
could
see what business is taken care of in there. I mean, if people would, if they need longer, if they don't, that's fine, I guess, just to find out for sure.
Maybe we can get some more feedback on that and
Just,
bring
you
it
know,
back.
And now that they've been there for a while, they may have
you know,
either solidified their feelings, or
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
think that something else might be appropriate, so we can certainly.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that may be one of those to bring back before we do something, maybe nothing. Item 4, review and consider the following parking ordinance modifications requested by the school district at Howe School, Grove School, and Mead School. And we do have the attachments in our packet here, and A is parking prohibited during certain periods. No person shall park or leave standing any vehicle upon any of the following streets or parts of streets at the time indicated, except temporarily for the purpose of and while actually engaging in receiving or discharging passengers. First one's 8th Street North, the west side, from 200 feet north of Oak Street to Saratoga Street, from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. on school days. And I think probably might as well do these one at a time, because they're all different locations. Joe?
So just a quick bit of background. Eric Dobbin is the safety officer and school resource officer for the school district, from the police department. And he came to the engineering department with these requests from the school district. We went out and visited each of the locations and reviewed what the concerns were and what the appropriate remedy might be, what they were looking for. And so that's what's proposed here today. Along 8th Street, the current signage was primarily for buses, and the bus traffic is reduced quite a bit. They have a lot of parents dropping off their children today, so they wanted to essentially lengthen the drop-off area drop-off and pickup area and shorten the bus loading zone. So that's what this effectively does on East Street, so.
The school satisfied.
Yep,
They-
this is
they have enough,
direct
okay.
from their, direct request from them.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to do that.
I'll second it.
Any discussion, committee, further? Hearing none, we'll vote. All in favor of the motion, respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Let's see, the next one. Walton Street, the south side, from 17th Avenue South to 50 feet east of 16th Avenue South, from 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. on school days. And this is over by Mead School.
So a very, very similar situation there. They don't have bus drop-off locations on Alton Street. However, the existing signage that was there was a bit confusing. Some signage said 5-minute parking, and then some was restricted parking, and it kind of incrementally increased as it went from 17th Avenue over to 16th Avenue.
16th,
So this is in large part just to clean it up and make it easier for people that are using that as a drop-off to, you know, that the signage is clear and it's not contradicting.
Okay. And, okay. No problem.
I'll make motion to approve the request.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second to approve the request, the motion. All those in favor respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. And the last one is no parking on Clyde Avenue south side from a point 250 feet west of Lincoln Street to a point 350 feet west of Lincoln Street.
So for Grove School, they currently have traffic that comes in off of Lincoln Street into their parking lot, and then it circles around and exit only onto Clyde Avenue. And in conjunction with that, in the morning, there's a lot of vehicles that pull up on Clyde Avenue facing east and right up to this exit driveway. And so there's the people that are trying to exit the driveway, and as they look left, all they see are a bunch of parked vehicles. They can't see very well past them, and there's people pulling in and pulling out along Clyde Avenue. And so there was a request to just have a section of no parking so that their visibility would be maintained, so they can see oncoming traffic as they're pulling out.
I think that's a good idea,
Yeah.
because I subbed over there, and then my wife used to teach there, and kids would get out of the cars on the south end of Clyde and cross the street. You know, this way it'd be further back of the driveway coming out. So I think that's a good idea.
I guess the only other comment I'd have is I had included as no parking at any time, but you know, as we're reading through them here, I was thinking that maybe just during the school days, 7:30 to 4:30, like the other two, would be appropriate as well. So.
Okay.
School days, would that just for, that would include summer school too, right? I would imagine.
I would think so.
Because they have summer school there.
I'll make a motion to approve this with the inclusion of, what was added in there?
7:30 a.m. to
Okay, so
4:30
the
p.m.
time
on
frame,
school days, yeah.
yep. Joe added it.
I would second that.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Item 5, review and discuss 30% plans for the East Grand Avenue, 3rd Street South to 8th Street South project. Okay, here we go.
Included in the packet is some information regarding the 30% plans, which generally refers to a design progress of the current plan set that would add a 30% threshold. They've established such things as curb lines, road profiles, identified any right-of-way that needs to be acquired, and they've also identified encroachments, things that are private property that's encroaching within the public right-of-way. And so, just for general review and discussion tonight, I wanted to go through some of those specific encroachments. I think there's about 20 or so encroachments that have been identified on the current corridor as it stands today. A lot of them are things that there probably isn't much room to remedy or fix during this particular project. Such things as signage that's overhanging, that's on the face of the buildings, or maybe, like, for instance, the Wood Trust Bank has a retaining wall. It's a concrete wall that extends up that actually falls within the city's right-of-way. But there are some things that can be remedied, or at least planned to be remedied in the future. There's driveway entrances that are outside of the current ordinance. They reside too close to the intersection. It makes them unsafe, and so certainly would be things that we would strive to correct with the reconstruction of the roadway. And I can walk you through some of those highlighted ones on this plan set. The parking lot for the theater, I think it's actually owned by Wood Trust Bank. It's on the very left side of this drawing, this first drawing. That driveway entrance, it's been looked at. There's review for potential access modifications. It's currently outside the DOT project, but it would be inside of the city's portion of the project reconstructing from the west or the Grand Avenue Bridge up to this proposed begin project start point identified on this plan sheet. Let's see here, moving along. On the second page, near Garfield Street, there's one proposed access removal to the, I guess, Encourage Community Foundation building in Metcalf and Quinn building. There's a driveway entrance that's immediately adjacent to the intersection. There's 3 additional access points to that property, and so that's being looked at as a possible removal. On the third page, at East Jackson Street and Lincoln Street, the old former Domino's property, there's 2 driveways that reside directly adjacent to the corner. They're being proposed to be removed. Currently, there's 1 driveway that would remain, and there's been discussions. I believe that there's been a cost estimate put together if they chose to have an additional one installed on East Jackson Street on the north side of their property. On the next page, adjacent to 6th Street. I'm not sure what the property is listed there. It looks like maybe a former mechanic shop, garage. There's a driveway entrance there, very similar, right next to the corner. They would have 1 access point that would be put back in. I think currently a lot of that frontage is just one giant driveway today. On the south side of East Grand at Taco John's, there's a couple issues going on there. Currently, the parking lot resides within the right-of-way. You can kind of see the parked cars there extending into the right-of-way, and in addition, they've got a driveway that does sit awfully close to the intersection. So that's being reviewed and looked at. The sidewalks kind of shifted over there. It's kind of laid out for a future sidewalk and curb line are being laid out so that in the future, possibly with the reconstruction of 6th Street someday, that that can be straightened back out without getting into the intersection. The final driveway is at the old Chamois Car Wash. Similar instance there, where it resides too close to the intersection. So with that, it's, I mean, any questions or comments, you can certainly answer any questions that you have. I think for the time being, we wanted to just discuss it with the committee and prior to sending out any notification letters and discussing it with the property owners directly. So.
Makes sense.
I thought there'd be more. Maybe there will be coming.
And like Joe said, there may be some of these where there's no practical solution, and there may be some of them that there are. You know, some of the practical solutions might not be completely desirable, but we will have to really, you know, try our best to follow our own policies and you know, where we can physically locate these things. So you know, it won't be easy.
You know, this is all that subject, but related to it. I'm on the beautification council. Are there going to be green space, not necessarily grass, but trees along this area in the cutouts or wherever you put them?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of boulevard space that will be available with the new roadway. So there'll be a lot of opportunities for that.
Okay, I guess as it continues on, keep us up to date, in the loop.
Sounds good.
Item 6. Review and consider approval of a resolution for bicycle accommodations on East Grand Avenue from 3rd Street South to 8th Street South as part of the Wisconsin DOT Project 6999-07-19. And that's, the committee had previously approved a similar resolution for the improvements occurring at 8th Street South and East Grand Avenue. This resolution is a requirement from the DOT to ensure the community is committed to providing bike accommodations throughout the design and construction process. Okay, Joe?
So yeah, I guess just a bit more background. The former state rules required that bike accommodations be made on every project. That was repealed or amended a couple of years ago, I believe, and they don't discourage it, but it's not a formal requirement. But in this case, it's part of our bike route plan, and it's just a formality so that the DOT knows that if they're providing a road cross-section that's wide enough to accommodate the bikes and going through the expensing funds to do the design, that they just want to be sure that the community's aware of it, that the council's approved that.
Okay. Any questions, committee?
So we would look for a motion to approve the recommended resolution.
Make a motion to accept the proposed resolution.
I'll second it. Questions, committee? Any further ones? Hearing none, we'll vote. All on motion, all in favor, respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. Item 7, review the referral list.
And Paul, the language for that resolution is in PW6. You got that?
Yes.
Okay.
Number 19, you can take off.
19 can go off. That was done at the last meeting, I believe.
Yeah, I think I may have forgot to move that.
We did add a number 20, and that's something that we need to review with staff, but that is instead of painting the curb, in a lot of the downtown areas, a single yellow stripe along the curb line. It has been utilized in some areas. We'll have to see if it's appropriate for what we're trying to accomplish, but that was a referral to consider.
Okay. Well, I guess when you bring it to us when you have the info, we'll deal with it.
19's gone.
Yep, gotcha.
That's all I think that I see anyway on here to take action on. So, committee, I guess, next, whatever number we're up to, the last one, 8 maybe it was, will be. We're up to number 8, which is adjourn. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
And a motion is second, I guess, to adjourn. All in favor, respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. We're adjourned at 7 p.m.